Right Here, Right Now by ThatHandSomeDevil. Another slow day at Ponyville's premier pastry shop. Sugarcube Corner was drifting by, especially slow for the bright pink pony tending the cash register. For Pinkie Pie, what with her combination of bright, exuberant energy and her tendency to help herself to the plethora of treats that the cakes had bake each and every day, it wasn't her style to simply stand around and watch the clock. She made this painfully obvious by constantly fidgeting, hopping from one hoof to another, and tapping rhythms not even violent scratch could hope to follow. Finally, after what felt like an eternity's Pinkie, but was actually 10 minutes, Applejack nudged the door open to the bakery. The bell above the door tingled merrily at the prospect of its sale. Pinkie Pie immediately lit up, a smile crossing her face as her orange apple-bugging friend made her way up to the counter.
Well, howdy, Pinkie. Not used to seeing you behind the counter.
Applejack said pleasantly, giving her friend a smile.
Oh, hi, AJ. Oh my gosh, you know, right? I don't think I'm out for this. I've just been standing here and I've been so bored. And I keep telling myself I can't eat any more of these treats because the cake said I had enough and they're the right. And I have. But they just look so good. And...
Pinkie?
Applejack said, her smile now one of awkward waiting.
Oh, right. Welcome to the Sugar Cube Corner.
Pinkie said in her best official-sounding voice.
What can I get you?
I'd like a cupcake, please. I'm bringing it home for Applebloom. It's her birthday tomorrow and all, you know?
Applejack said, smiling at her friend genuinely once again. Pinkie Pie let out one of her signature gasps, rising a few feet in the air as she did so.
Oh my gosh, it is, isn't it?
Pinkie Pie said, unable to hold in her excitement.
Oh, I need to throw her a party. There'll be cake and balloons and ice cream and music and all of my friends will be there.
Applejack simply stood aside while Pinkie went through her mental checklist of things she'd need for Applebloom's party. When Pinkie was finally done, Applejack simply glanced downward and said,
Aw, that's mighty nice of you, Pinkie. And normally, I'd like to keep coming to you to throw a Applebloom party any day. But times have been hard this season. We haven't quite been turning quite the profit we usually do during Applebloom season.
Seeing her friend was down was enough to instantly bring Pinkie down, especially Applejack.
Wait, why especially Applejack?
Pinkie thought to herself. Pinkie took a look at the orange mare. She was idly standing there, her eyes focused on the floor, and thought for a moment. Finally, she simply dismissed stray thought and focused on the present again. Pinkie took Applejack's hoof in between her own, surprised by its warmth. Pinkie's heart hopped, skipped, and jumped, then went into overdrive, beating madly.
Now, since when have I been noticing a thing like that? And what happened to my heart? It feels funny. Alright, Jay, tell you what, since it's just for you, I'll do it for free.
Applejack's eyes widened, looking at the pink party pony with a mixture of shock and sudden happiness.
Oh, shucks, Pinkie. You don't have to do that.
Applejack said, looking away from Pinkie Pie, a slight line of red appearing across her muzzle, due to the fact that her friend had unexpectedly taken her hoof. Pinkie Pie looked down, suddenly realizing what she had done, and quickly dropped Applejack's hoof with a sheepish grin. Applejack let out a little chuckle.
Well, maybe I don't have to, but I want to. Especially for you, AJ.
Oh, well, thank you kindly, Pinkie Pie. But what do you mean, especially for you?
Applejack asked, looking at the pink pony questioningly.
Yeah, what did you mean?
Thought Pinkie's traitorous mind.
Oh, I just meant, 'cause you're my friend. You know, I love to make my friends smile.
Pinkie Pie said quickly, a bead of sweat forming on her forehead above where her wild, untamed mane covered it. She begged Celestia that it not drop too low. Pinkie was feeling uncomfortably hot all of a sudden, and she wasn't sure why.
Ah, well, that's my kind of you, Pinkie. Thank y'all.
Applejack suddenly wrapped her arms around her party-loving pal, pulling her into a hug. Pinkie Pie's temperature rose another 10 degrees and her heart started beating 10 times harder. She felt it soar up to her throat like a scared pegasus, causing her to release a herk sound as AJ squeezed her. The apple-loving pony didn't notice. Finally, Applejack released Pinkie, who didn't understand how Applejack could be so nonchalant.
Well, I'll be taking my cupcake now if you don't mind.
AJ said to the stunned, silenced pony, who took a moment to register what had just been said. Pinkie breathed a mental sigh of relief, glad she wouldn't have to mask her sudden discomfort much longer.
Oh, right!
Pinkie Pie handed AJ the cupcakes she had requested, and AJ planked a shiny gold coin on the counter. Pinkie Pie waved goodbye to her friend as she exited the pastry shop, collapsing onto the counter in a heap, panting, a bead of sweat streaking its way down her face.
What just happened to me? Why AJ? Why now? Why does my forehead hurt?
Pinkie Pie jerked up and saw that the bit Applejack had used to pay for the cupcake was gone. Suddenly, something plinked onto the floor with a ting. Pinkie looked down and realized she had collapsed right onto the bit. She giggled to herself, snatching it up and tossing it into the cash register before returning to her vigilant post, not to receive another customer that night. She only thought of her friend occasionally. Finally, it was closing time. Pinkie Pie was less tired than she normally would have been, and this only allowed her thoughts to race more as she mentally reviewed the events of her day while lying in bed, staring up at the ceiling of her bedroom. She couldn't stop thinking about her fellow Earth pony friend, Applejack. For as long as she could remember, she had never felt anything for Applejack like she had felt today. She couldn't remember ever bonding with Applejack that way, although, of course, she loved her friend very much, but not, at least she thought not, in that way.
I wonder if I was just going crazy from having to stand still all day.
As if in a retaliating response, Pinkie's ever-traitorous mind suddenly pulled up a vivid image of her grabbing AJ's hoof, how warm it had felt, and how unexpectedly soft her fur was, for her being a hard-working pony.
Why am I thinking about this? Is there something wrong with me?
Normally exuberant party pony was overcome with feelings she couldn't even begin to understand.
I've never felt this way. Not even that time I ate 30 cupcakes and I literally climbed the walls like a spider. My tummy feels hurty, like I ate too many sweets, but in a good way. Like I don't mind if it hurts.
And then Pinkie remembered when AJ had pulled her in the hug. Normally it was Pinkie Pie who was being random and spontaneous, but in that situation she'd felt completely switched around. No pony had ever done that to Pinkie Pie. I could Applejack in less than 30 minutes. For a while, Pinkie simply laid, thinking about Applejack. She was honest, simple, hard-working, every bit as kind as Fluttershy, as loyal as Dashy, as generous as Rarity, and as wise as Twilight, though maybe not as book-smart. When Pinkie stopped and thought about it, she realized that Applejack really would make a great Philly friend.
Philly friend? What am I saying? And why would Applejack ever want to be with me, anyhow? Stop being silly, Pinkie.
Pinkie rolled over and tried to get to sleep. Her head would have none of it, though.
But what if she did? It's not like you've had a relationship with a colt before. And if every day with Applejack could feel like today...
Pinkie Pie thought about that. If every day could make her feel like what Applejack had made her feel today, it was that warm, fuzzy feeling that finally allowed her the comfort of sleep. The next day was bright and beautiful as any other day. Perfect day for a little filly to have a party. And wasn't it just Pinkie Pie's luck? She'd be spending the day at Sweet Apple Acres, home of Applejack and the rest of the apples, to prepare the party. Pinkie arrived early, her party cannon and several other things in tow. Applejack opened the door upon the second knock, smiling when she saw it was her friend Pinkie.
Well, hi, Pinkie. Shucks. I still can't thank y'all enough for doing this. Little Applebloom. I ain't little. I'm 13.
Came a voice from the den. Applejack let out a sigh, but the smile on her face suggested she didn't really mind, and she turned back to Pinkie.
Applebloom couldn't be more thankful, and I couldn't either. You're great, Pinkie.
Aw, it's nothing, Applejack.
Pinkie said, thankful she was naturally pink, so light blushing didn't affect her much. She did her best to stay like the Pinkie Pie everyone knew and loved, for all of their sakes. Pinkie began setting up the decorations around the barn behind Sweet Apple Acres. Her party cannon had full power as banners, balloons, streamers, and party favors flew amongst the hay and sunbeams, covering the rafters and makeshift tables. A large rectangular table sat near the back, a punch bowl and a large round cake with yellow frosting and red icing that proclaimed brightly, "Happy birthday, Applebloom." As always, it was promising to be another Pinkie party to remember. An hour later, the guests had arrived, and the party was in full swing. The cutie mark crusaders were dancing up a storm together, Applebloom wearing a specially designed party hat made by Pinkie herself, while Pinkie, Applejack, and their 4 other friends were gathered away from the mayhem the CMC were leaving behind.
Great party, Pinkie.
Rainbow Dash said, taking a generous sip of punch from her glass.
I agree. The decor is simply marvelous.
Rarity chimed in.
Applebloom must be so happy you did all this for her.
Twilight said, beaming at Pinkie, who was happily bouncing around to the music.
Oh, you should have seen her face last night, girls.
Applejack said fondly, watching her little sister cut a rug a little ways off.
Pinkie Pie is the best pony ever, she said.
All of the ponies awed in unison, even Rainbow Dash, who normally wasn't one to get sappy. Fluttershy piped up.
Oh my, Pinkie, I don't know how you always manage to throw such great parties, even on such short notice.
Aw, it's not so hard, especially when you got a party cannon.
Pinkie said, motioning to her prized mobile discotheque. Applejack trotted over to Pinkie Pie, her hoof reaching out for Pinkie's. As soon as they touched, Pinkie jumped slightly, like she'd been shocked. Applejack, unnoticing as ever, lifted her hoof up, Pinkie growing more nervous by the minute.
Really though, Sugar Cube, I can't thank you enough for what you done.
Applejack whispered to her friend.
Come here, let's get away from the other girls for a minute. I have something I want to give you for your troubles.
Pinkie Pie's heart was now going impossibly fast, jumping as hard as she had been only moments ago as she danced along with the music. She swallowed heavily, sweat once again forming on her head, as she followed Applejack out of the barn and to the west side.
Ooh, I wonder what AJ's gonna be giving me.
Pinkie's mind fluttered with vivid possibilities that seemed endless, but none of which seemed likely. Still, the pony couldn't help but hope that at least one of her many fantasies would come true. Applejack, once outside, turned back to face Pinkie, taking a moment to pause and examine her.
You alright there, Sugar Cube? You look tense.
Oh, oh, me? I'm fine. I'm just eager to party, is all.
Pinkie said, trying her best to mask her true feelings and doing a bad job.
Alrighty, if you say so. Anyhow, Applebloom had something she wanted to give you, and she entrusted me to give it to you.
Applejack said, taking off her hat. Pinkie couldn't hide her feelings of disappointment very well, as she felt her heart sink to back where it belonged. She did her best to put on a mask for Applejack, for little Applebloom's sake.
Aw, that sure was nice of her. What'd she make?
Applejack handed Pinkie an envelope. Inside was a bright pink card, which, upon opening, revealed a crudely drawn picture of Applebloom, Pinkie Pie, and Applejack holding hands, with the words, "Pinkie Pie, honorary member of the Apple family," with signatures of all 4 occupants of Sweet Apple Acres below. Pinkie felt tears swelling up in her eyes as she looked up at Applejack, who just smiled.
We thought you'd like it, Sugar Cube.
She said, holding her hat against her chest. Reaching her hoof out, she placed her hat on Pinkie's head.
Welcome to the family, Sugar Cube.
AJ chuckled.
Say, my hat looks pretty good on you, Pinkie.
A million different thoughts bombarded Pinkie all at once. 1,000 different calls to action, urging her muscles forward, backward, upward, anywhere but exactly where she was. In the end, though, the call that won was the call to move closer. So Pinkie did. She moved until her lips were against Applejack's, and suddenly they were kissing. Kissing even though they were just friends. Even though mares weren't supposed to kiss each other. Kissing even though Pinkie didn't know if Applejack felt the same. Then Pinkie broke away, the dam breaking as tears finally began streaking down her usually smiling face, her mouth tasting slightly of apples and her eyes stinging. Applejack opened her mouth to try to speak, but before she could say anything, Pinkie was running away from the party, from her friends, from everything. Applejack's head stayed on her head the entire journey home to Sugarcube Corner, and teardrops lined the path behind her. When she first galloped away, she thought she heard a familiar voice yell to her.
Pinkie, wait!
She chose to ignore it. Pinkie Pie sat alone in her darkened room at Sugarcube Corner. Applejack's hat sat in her hooves, and Pinkie sat on her floor, caressing the hat, learning its every feel and fold while she could. She knew that hat was precious to AJ, and therefore it was precious to her too. She didn't know how much time had gone by before she heard the squeaking of the door downstairs. Once again, she chose blissful ignorance over curiosity, and stayed still in the dark, with only a memento of one of her best friend for company.
I messed up.
She thought.
Why did I do that? Why, of all the things I could have done, why did I do that?
She replied to herself.
Because you wanted to. Well, duh! But I shouldn't have. I've ruined our friendship, maybe forever.
Pinkie thought that she had exhausted her reserves of tear, but even more somehow managed to fall and gently plop on the bedroom floor, leaving dark spots. Pinkie wallowed in her own misery for a few moments, until she heard footsteps coming up the stairs and down the hall.
Pinkie?
She heard someone say in a familiar southern drawl. She sniffled a few times before gaining her composure.
In here.
She said. Applejack wandered in, looking at a dejected little pony sitting on the floor with a mixture of sadness and surprise.
I guess you came back for your hat.
Pinkie said, holding it out in an attempt to give it back.
No, I didn't. I came for something far more important than that.
Applejack said, sitting down next to Pinkie.
If not that, then what?
Well, ain't it obvious, Pinkie? You.
Pinkie Pie looked at Applejack with surprise.
But why?
Because you're my best friend, you silly filly.
Applejack said, coaxing Pinkie to turn her frown upside down, like she knew Pinkie would do for her.
Yeah, I know, but I did a thing.
Pinkie said, looking away from Applejack. AJ just looked ahead, not trying to make eye contact, and said,
Well, I told the other girls to keep an eye on Applebloom and the gang while I went after you, so I had plenty of time to think on my way here. Think about the fact you and I are pretty much polar opposites. You love having fun and being carefree, and me? Well, I like thinking simple and working hard. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. That's why I randomly hugged you yesterday. I know being random is usually your thing. Another thing that makes us different. But sometimes I guess two things that don't seem like they do so good end up doing just that. Because they balance each other out like.
Like what?
Pinkie asked, now looking up at Applejack's face. Applejack turned and gave Pinkie a smile.
Like apple pie.
Pinkie couldn't help but giggle now.
That's like our two names put together.
Pinkie said, her smile that every pony so loved finally returned to her face. Applejack chuckled.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Pinkie looked down at Applejack's hat.
I guess you'll be wanting this back now.
Nah, you can hold him for a little while. I've got something even better.
What's that?
Pinkie asked curiously. Applejack didn't answer. Instead, she simply set her hat on Pinkie's head, then kissed her with all the force she could muster. Pinkie was taken aback at first. She wouldn't even begin to think about fighting it. She simply enjoyed the few breathtaking moments she was spending with Applejack, right there and right now. Just the way Pinkie liked her apple pie. The end.